Greetings, everyone. My name is Amy Nelson. I'm the current president of Minnesota PTA, and I am here today to present PTA 101. This is being recorded. If you have any questions as we go through, please put them in the chat, and then we will answer them at the end, or depending on where we are and everything, where they come up. For those of you who are joining us at a later time, welcome, and let's go ahead and get started. So, the topics we're going to hit today are, I'm going to turn my speaker view off here. There we go. So we're going to talk about why being a PTA is so different than being another kind of parent organization. We're going to cover the structure of PTA. We're going to talk about membership campaign, which is what National can actually offer you that other PTOs or parent-teacher organizations cannot. The business of PTA, setting your year up for success, and what programs you can find. So, we always start every meeting with our mission to make every child's potential a reality by engaging and empowering families and communities to advocate for all children. I personally prefer the less wordy every child, one voice, where we all work together toward a common goal of making sure that all of our children are receiving and getting the type of education they need. We do this through our values of collaboration, commitment, diversity, respect, and accountability. But more importantly, you need to define for your community what value your PTA brings. What is your PTA going to do for your school community this year? This is an important thing for you to determine, simply because if your only goal is to raise money, then we're not quite doing PTA the right way. And I will tell you that is because we are an association, we're a membership association, and we're part of a larger movement. And if you go back to our mission statement, to make every child's potential a reality, in no way does it say we're here to raise funds for our schools. Advocacy is our number one goal. So the structure of PTA, I call it a bottom-up structure, which means that once you become a member, that's you who are on here, and there are approximately between 4,000 and 5,000 individual members in Minnesota. Once you become a member of your local unit, you are then a member of the state unit and the national unit. So you are part of a bigger organization and association. So we have approximately 200 individual PTA units across the state. We have 2 councils in Duluth and Rochester. We're always looking for more, and anywhere that has, I think it's 2 or more or 3 or more schools with a PTA, you can create a council. We're at the state level, which provides resources for our local PTA units in Minnesota. And at the national level, there are over 3.5 million members. And it's not only national, we also have a unit in all 50 states, Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands. There's a European one, which is for military bases. So they are all over the world, but our headquarters are in Alexandria, Virginia, just outside of Washington, D.C. So membership, yes, we are a membership association, and each of our units pays dues to the state, and the state then in turn pays national PTA. National PTA gets gets $2.25, and the state gets $4, and that is a total of $6.25 per member. We require a minimum of 20 members per unit because that is kind of like the base that we need for making sure that we have all the resources to offer you. It pays for resources like Voter Voice, it pays for our convention, it pays for our office manager. So there are all of these things that we need to do that are costs that our members and our dues pay for. We do waive that requirement with authorization, especially for new incoming units. Excuse me. So you can decide, how much your unit wants to charge for membership. So you can say $5 per member, where the unit is going to pick up that extra $1.25. $10 per member. That seems to be pretty standard. There's a couple other options on here as far as what you can charge, but the amount that you should charge should cover your cost of operations, which means that membership is not a fundraiser. Membership is what keeps your doors open, quote unquote. And so we are trying to figure out the best way to allow the most people become members. So most units allow for scholarships to gift members and for members to request. So, or you can get corporate sponsorships. So the cost of operation is, like I said, keeping the doors open. It is any costs incurred to operate the unit. So insurance, childcare for meetings, translation services, meals at meetings, transportation, printing costs. So if a unit that charges $15 per person, they would retain $8.75 for operational costs. So it would cost your unit about $175 to kind of run. And so that's where we end up with the 20 members at state level. So as we said, $2.25 goes to National PTA and $4 comes to Minnesota PTA. It allows for advocacy updates, resources, and trainings to PTA for all children, like this. Our cost of business is having a Zoom account, so that's why we are here. We support the business of PTA, so nonprofit requirements, bylaws and standing rules, finance, membership. These are all things that we help you with at the state level. Exclusive online training opportunities through National PTA. Professionally developed membership campaign resources, which we'll talk about momentarily. Access to National PTA programs and grant opportunities. If you were on last week, you learned about the grants that National PTA offers. Those are due tomorrow. And we're also going to open up some state level grants, hopefully by the end of this week. Resource materials and training opportunities. We're always the first to say, do not reinvent the wheel. Chances are that what you are looking for is out there somewhere. But most importantly, we give you a venue to share, support, and be supported by other PTA leaders. That's something that you would be missing out on if you were to be in a different type of parent involvement organization. So membership via givebacks. So in 2019, we launched MemberHub. This year, MemberHub announced a rebranding and a name change. They're now known as givebacks. However, their purpose for Minnesota PTA has not changed. And the number one reason we use givebacks is to communicate with all of our local PTA unit members and leaders. We hope MemberHub can be a resource for you and your units as you gather members. If you have questions about givebacks, you can contact their support line or join one of their training workshops. They're very responsive, and so I highly encourage you to check that out. If you have further questions, you just contact our office, and Amber can help direct you where you need to go. So as I mentioned, there's a national PTA membership campaign that is out there. There's no wrong way to PTA. So if you go to the National PTA website, there are resources here. There's membership campaign toolkit, different things that you can print off, how to implement it. There's resources in Spanish. You can customize it for your PTA or your PTSA. There is a plethora of resources available here for you. And that is one of the benefits that your dues goes toward. So The business of PTA. So we talk about oftentimes that the business of PTA gets in the way of the mission of PTA, which means it can be kind of tricky to keep track of what you need to be doing, what forms you need to be filling out and submitting, how to maintain your 501c3 status. These are all things that are like considered the business of PTA, the back end. We really want our units to be concentrating on the mission of PTA. So the business of PTA, we want to help you with that as much as possible. I mean, we want to help you with everything, but really the business of PTA, we want to make it as easy for you as we can. So there's some first things first. So like I showed you, National PTA's website. It's slow if you hadn't noticed that, but that's okay. You can go through it and you can find what you need. So once you register on the website, you can go to the local leader kit. Make sure you and your fellow officers are in givebacks because that way you won't miss anything from Minnesota PTA. That's, like I said, the #1 way we communicate with you. Follow Minnesota PTA on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Our Facebook is the most active. We're working on the others. And then ask to join the Minnesota PTA Facebook officers group. It's MNPTA officers if you are on Facebook, and then it'll ask you a few questions, and that's for current local leaders. Currently, we have what are called, it's unit in good standing or standards of affiliation. So these are the basic things that you need to do in order to stay in good standing. So we need the officers list, like I mentioned, and givebacks. Taxes need to be filed and submitted by November 15th. So a little plug here, on October 24th, our Vice President Treasurer will be presenting a webinar about submitting taxes. So that's a Tuesday, just like today. How are you? So we also have dues that need to be submitted by December 1st. I actually encourage you to do that monthly, but we do require it quarterly. We have universal bylaws and standing rules. So I'm going to put a plug out there for 2 weeks from now, October 17th, which is about standing rules. So all of our PTAs in Minnesota follow a universal set of bylaws. Each unit has their own unique standing rules that personalize how your association at the local level functions. So they should be reviewed annually and re-upped every 5 years, and that's what will be happening in 2 weeks. So I encourage you to mark your calendar for that. Other things that are being added and things that are important to stay in the 501c3 status is to do a Secretary of State filing and to do an Attorney General filing and to have insurance. Those are all things that we really encourage you to have. So as far as standards of affiliation go, we're going to be rolling out an official standards of affiliation for our units to take a look at after the first of the year. And those will not be going into effect until the 2024-2025 school year. And then will be reviewed annually by the Minnesota board. So officer eligibility. This question comes up a lot because there's oftentimes people who committed to being officers who changed schools or moved during the pandemic. So the only actual legal requirements to be an officer in a local PTA are 18 years old, resident of Minnesota, and a dues-paying member of that PTA unit. So previously committed elected officers may stay on even if they do not have a student at the school this year. However, we highly recommend that you have parents and community members of that school involved. This is also something that may be coming out in our standards of affiliation, where we might put a couple more restrictions on who can be officers simply because of conflict of interest and everything like that. So watch for that when we do this standards of affiliation. So how to make this year the best it can be. We've all been coming out of the pandemic and quarantine, and things have not necessarily been easy, especially for those units who had people kind of ditch them basically during pandemic and quarantine for a variety of reasons. So I guess I shouldn't say ditch, but who left that PTA unit and have new people coming in who have no idea what they're doing and did not get the training that they felt they needed. So let's see how you can set this year up for success. So as we talked about, why are you in PTA and what is your role? You know, that's a big thing that is oftentimes overlooked by boards is why are they even having a PTA at their school? And spend a lot of time on those relationships, determining what a successful year is going to look like. You want to make sure that everyone feels welcome, wanted, and valuable. And think about inclusion. Who has a voice in your PTA? Whose perspectives are missing? And who isn't feeling valued? Look around the table and see who's not there. Because if you're making decisions about somebody who is not represented at your table, then that is not going to make anybody feel included. Set your calendar. Hopefully by now you have your calendar set up. I always recommend doing something in the summer and then coming and speaking to like your family engagement coordinator, your principal, your lead, whoever is in charge of planning events at your school that are school specific outside of PTA, working with them to set your calendar. If you do not approve a budget in the spring, you will need to do that first thing this fall because you can't spend money without a budget. So that includes choosing what your fundraisers are, how you want to allocate, how you want to set up what money you're going to be spending over the year. And that is up to the members of your PTA, not the exec board and not the principal. Financial best practices. We have a lot of policies and best practices out there at our website, www.mnpta.org. I highly encourage you to check that out. There are some great things that are out there about sunshine funds, whether or not your PTA is an ATM for your school, and where the money should be going. And look out for yourself. This is something that really has happened during quarantine, is that members realize that, they don't have to volunteer in a million different things in order to feel fulfilled, or they've taken priority to do something else. And so it's very important that if you are the one running your PTA, that you are not the only one running your PTA. And you need to make sure to step back and make sure that you are feeling healthy and mentally and physically. Say no to things and delegate, because if something goes away, that just means that it wasn't important at that moment, and it may or may not come back. If it's important enough, somebody will come and help. And if there's no one to run an event, cancel it. You don't have to do everything, and you have to stick to your boundaries. Most importantly, and this will make everything a little bit easier, I think, is if you find the fun. Post remote happy hours or meetings at the school, like play dates outside in the playground that are outside of school hours. Get to know others in your school. It's important to make those types of connections. As I mentioned earlier, we are going to be rolling out some grants from Minnesota PTA to start a reflections program at your school. Please save the date for our annual convention, Saturday, April 20th, 2024 at the Masonic Heritage Center in Bloomington. And join us every Tuesday for Tips and Tricks Tuesdays, every Tuesday at noon and 7 p.m. Check out the calendar on our website to see upcoming topics and other important dates. Next week at noon and 7, we'll be having a drop-in question and answer. If you have anything, you can just pop on or get your question answered, or we will help find a way to get it answered if we don't know the answer right off the top. So I want to thank you for coming today, and hopefully you learned something you didn't know before. If you have any questions, I will now take them, but I'm going to put this last slide up here with our information.